Hello and welcome once again to episode 83 of Code Completion. We're a group of iOS developers and educators hoping to share what we love most about development, Apple technology, and completing your code. My name is Dimitri and I'll be your host once again for this episode, and I'm joined today by my fellow completionist, Spencer.
Hey there.
So last Tuesday, Apple gave a preview of accessibility features coming later in the year, and I'm just going to assume that means iOS 16, in celebration of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which was this week. So I figured what a better time to do a read-through of all the new features to come. So here we are. Before we get started, I also wanted to point out that a lot of people think of accessibility features as either specifically for the blind, which they're not, or specifically for disabled people, which they can be useful for disabled people, but they're not. So accessibility features really are for everyone, and it enables anyone, and I want to use anyone rather than everyone. It enables anyone to use technology devices in a way that best suits them. So whether no matter how your body is, or no matter how you behave, you are able to have a pleasant experience using devices. And we in common everyday language don't really have language to best describe things other than disabled and neurotypical or stuff like that. So I want to call out a few times during our read through, whenever Apple does use some interesting terminology that we can also perhaps adopt into our own vocabulary. That is more inviting to people of all shapes and sizes. So before I fumble trying to think of vocabulary on my own, let's get started.
All right. So yeah, the first thing that they have here, sorry, let me resize my window here, is door detection for users who are blind or low vision. So we're just going to kind of read through the actual paragraphs of the article, and then we'll kind of comment on it. So the article says, Apple's introducing door detection, a cutting-edge navigation feature for users who are blind or low vision. Door detection can help users locate a door upon arriving at a new destination, understand how far they are away from it, and describe door attributes, including if it's open or closed, and when it's closed, whether it can be opened by pushing, turning a knob, pulling a handle, etc. That's really cool. Door detection can also read signs and symbols around the door, like the room number at an office or the presence of an accessible entrance symbol. This new feature combines the power of LiDAR, camera, and on-device machine learning, and will be available on iPhone, iPad models with the LiDAR scanner. It'll also be available in a new detection mode within Magnifier, Apple's built-in app supporting blind and low vision users. Door detection, along with people detection and image descriptions, can each be used alone or simultaneously in this detection mode, offering users with vision disabilities a go-to place with customizable tools to help navigate and access rich description of their surroundings. In addition to the navigation tools within Magnifier, Apple Maps will offer sound and haptics for feedback for VoiceOver users to identify the starting point for walking directions. These are really cool. I mean, very cool that when I saw this, the kind of head image for it, it shows a screenshot of this, and it's very cool. And you can definitely tell that they would need something like LiDAR and machine learning and the camera to kind of make this all work. And it's cool that, I don't know, for me, when they announced LiDAR for the iPhone, it seemed in a way a little gimmicky, super cool that it helps with photography and stuff, but they're kind of expanding it to be very, very useful to a lot of people in ways that are perhaps you wouldn't think of when you think of LiDAR, but now it makes sense that it can do distance detection and it can do machine learning to essentially parse an image and say, oh yeah, here's a wheelchair symbol or whatever it may be, to let these people know. So
It can be
super
their
cool.
eyes for them.
Exactly. Yeah. I there's this really cool YouTube channel that I think is called Stuff Made Here. Let me and he did something kind of similar. He's this programmer, but he also I think worked on like a for a company that makes 3D printers, and so he's like both software and hardware engineering kind of guy. And he made this device for his iPad that had a bunch of you could think of it like a grip, but it had a bunch of I think little pins that would come out, and it would basically tell you more or less distance from something. And I believe it also used the lidar to do that. Anyway, this is really cool. It's just you have your phone, and that's all you need. It's just kind of one, it's an all-in-one type of thing. So very cool in that sense. Also cool that it's customizable. Like Dimitri said, we're all very different, and we all maybe I just have very low vision, and I don't have my glasses or something. I don't know. My vision's not that bad, but it's pretty bad. Anyway, you could customize it to your needs and not have it give you all the features, or it could give you all the features. So super cool that it's very personalized if you want it to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I know a lot of people with diabetes, they can have trouble seeing the whole picture because of like literally someone took a Sharpie and started drawing all over your vision. That's basically what they described it to me as. And that can be difficult when you can't see everything. But if you have a device that you can bring close to your face, you can see that a little more clearly. You can move it around your field of vision a little more easily. And get the whole picture. So if that can see what you need to be looking at, then that can be helpful in those situations as well. And I wanted to bring up that this is all done through Magnifier, which is an app that's built into all iOS devices. You can turn it on for your control center. And this works like a literal magnifying glass. You can go ahead and like have your phone right up to a book, and it will zoom it up way bigger than the camera can, and it will up the contrast and make it way easier to see and read. And this is all built into that app, so that app is kind of like the catch-all for all sorts of cool visions related things, with regard to being an extension of our own bodies just through the device itself. So that is really awesome that that app has continued to grow over the years, and it didn't just kind of wallow out of existence like so many of these ancillary features tend to do. And I'm really excited to see it mature in this way.
Yeah, for sure.
So going on to the next one, we have advancing physical and motor accessibility for Apple Watch. So Apple Watch becomes more accessible than ever for people with physical and motor disabilities with Apple Watch mirroring, which helps users control Apple Watch remotely from their paired iPhone. With Apple Watch mirroring, users can control Apple Watch using iPhone's assistive features like VoiceOver and switch control, and use inputs including voice commands, sound actions, head tracking, or external made-for-iPhone switches as alternatives to tapping on the watch display. Apple Watch mirroring uses hardware and software integration, including advances built on AirPlay, to help ensure users who rely on these mobility features can benefit from unique Apple Watch apps like blood oxygen, heart rate, mindfulness, and more. So the main headline screenshot of this is you have a little card on your phone, kind of like when you first pair a watch or a HomePod or AirPods, except that is your watch display, and you can fully interact with it directly. And the neat thing about this is if you have your phone already configured for VoiceOver or switch controls or what have you, you can be wearing your watch, or someone could assist you in putting on your watch, but you don't ever have to operate it directly. You can have your phone mounted wherever you need it, and you can operate the watch directly via your phone's larger display. So I think that's really, really neat. You don't need to twist your wrist or anything. And this could be super useful for, guess what, everyday folks. If you have your watch mounted on your arm because you're doing a run, instead of like twisting your arm awkwardly to see it, you can just pull out your phone and stop your workout or do whatever you need to do straight from there. So this is an example where like initially conceived for an accessibility need, makes it accessible for everyone, right? You no longer need to not have these features because no one thought of them, right? So I think it's really cool that stuff like this gets invented and then becomes available for everyone, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, just off the top of my head, there's at least one accessibility feature that I use on the daily, which is back tap. Let's see, I'm trying to find it in the. There's, I mean, it's awesome. There are so many accessibility things, but there are a few menus. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Accessibility, touch, back tap. It's at the very bottom. And you have the option to either double tap or triple tap the back of your phone, and it can perform some action. The one that I have found the most use for is just turning on my flashlight, so I can just, unlock my phone and back tap like that, and it'll turn on, right? And that's sweet because, easier than trying to find the little button on the lock screen or whatever. So definitely agree that these things are, again, probably conceived for as an accessibility feature, but again, are useful to anyone. So that's super cool.
Mm-hmm. Going quickly back to the back tap, what I like to use mine for is Spotlight, because you can't actually access Spotlight from within an app. Like you can get to the flashlight, for instance, by going through Control Center. But for Spotlight, you have to exit the app, go to the home screen, and then swipe down to get anything. And I always use Spotlight for like quick calculations. So anytime I'm in an app and I need to like access that, I just tap on the back and I get a little Spotlight thing, and I just use it as a calculator for all intents and purposes. But I'm not like really out of the app when I'm doing that. I can jump right back into it. And that's basically my same use of Spotlight on the Mac. I don't ever search for anything with it. I use it as a calculator. And that's fine. Awesome. That's what it enables, right? So it is accessible for those reasons. On the AirPlay thing, I'm wondering now if your watch doesn't ever have to turn its display on, even though it's streaming like video over to the phone. I'm wondering if it ends up having much better battery life as a result of it just being able to do computational stuff rather than display, like shooting photons to your eyes, which tends to be the biggest consumer of electricity because it turns into photons. I wonder what the battery life is for something like this, if it's something that we had to wait until now to be able to do. I'm sure Apple has been like using the same exact technology that's behind this to be able to demo Apple Watch stuff like during keynotes and stuff this whole time. So I don't think it's anything particularly new. I just wonder like if the battery technology finally got good enough. Though if this works for the Apple Watch Series 3, which is still for sale, correct?
Mm-hmm. I believe so, yeah.
Then I guess battery has nothing to do with it because that one will be the same as it always was. I don't know. My Series 3 gets better battery than my Series 5, my Series 5. So it's also the bigger model, so that's likely why, but I always found that funny. Despite it being 2 years older.
Yeah. So another thing that they can do with Apple Watches is you've got like hand gestures. So it says users can do even more with simple hand gestures to control the Apple Watch. With new quick actions on Apple Watch, a double pinch gesture can answer or end a phone call, dismiss a notification, take a photo, play or pause media in the Now Playing app, start, pause, and resume a workout. This builds on the innovative technology used in assistive touch on Apple Watch, which gives users with upper body limb differences the option to control the Apple Watch with gestures like a pinch or a clench without having to tap the display.
So I love how Apple calls that out as upper body limb differences. Like it's not descriptive at all, but it gets the point across, and that's one of those terms that I wanted to kind of call out to, because I think it's important to get used to like talking about accessibility in this way rather than a disability, more of something that is just a difference. Because it like that might be their whole body, you know. Doesn't necessarily need to be an accident or anything that someone can end up some way. It's just if you're born that way, that's the only way you ever knew.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're all kind of born a little different. You can say on average we all have 2 arms and 2 legs, but that's not necessarily always the case. It's an average, as with so many things biological, right?
Right. So this is a physical pinch on the screen, though, right? It's not like the...
No. So this is
it
the one
is.
where you
Okay.
clench or you tap.
Okay,
so this
I was
previewed last
unclear.
year. Yeah,
Yes,
this was
I remember,
previewed last
like-
year for the accessibility preview.
Yeah, I remember, like it says here, gestures like a pinch or a clench without having to tap the display. I didn't know if... I guess that makes sense. It is the same sort of thing. Super cool, though. Yeah, I wanted. I've never tried it before. I should try it. It would be super cool to see how well that works. Have you done it before?
I have not. I didn't
Nope.
even recognize that it was likely available. And I think it is, right? It was
I
previewed
believe so,
last
yeah.
year. So I believe it is in WatchOS 8, I think we're on. I'm so like lost for the numbers. I think we're on WatchOS 8. It makes no sense that nothing matches anything. So you just have to memorize them.
Yep.
But yeah, so to go over it one more time, you can clench your wrist, and I guess that like makes your wrist bulge or something. I don't know exactly how they detect it, but they detect it. Or you can pinch your thumb and index or any other finger, I guess. It doesn't really matter. And that subtle vibration is likely easy for them to pick up. And when is this useful? Well, whenever you don't have a second hand to operate your watch. Gone are the days where you need to be born with a pointy nose. Now all nose shapes are a moot point, because you can go ahead and operate the one hand that has a watch on it.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, like, oftentimes when I go grocery shopping, I'll just throw my AirPods in and you know, to change a song on my watch, I just generally shuffle all the music on my entire phone. You know, I'm holding the cart, and then I have to go like this, and you know, like push the cart a little, then you know, hit next or whatever.
get a little leeway.
Yeah. So being able to just like clench on that would be super nice, just for, you know, again,
just
everyday
don't clench
stuff.
your grocery cart, right? It's gonna be doing the same thing.
It's like such a mundane use for this, but it's also useful it could be useful for me. So super cool. And then, you know, for others that need it more, then all the better.
Or if your hands are wet or anything that means that you can't directly operate the screen, this is super useful for. And I'm not joking about the nose thing. Like, I constantly will go ahead and type my password with my nose, because that's the only pointy thing I have that could do it at that moment in time. Whether I'm like holding stuff, you know, like there's all sorts of situations. You can oftentimes hold a bag while doing that ridiculous movement. So maybe the pinch and clench gestures don't work for that situation. I'll still have to rely on my nose. But I think it's pretty cool that it is an available thing now. So I'm definitely going to try it after we finish recording.
Definitely. Me too.
So this takes us to the next one. And this is live captions come to iPhone, iPad, and Mac for deaf and hard of hearing users. So for deaf and hard of hearing community, Apple's introducing live captions on iPhone, iPad, and Mac. Users can follow along more easily with any audio content, whether they are on a phone or FaceTime call, using a video conferencing or social media app, streaming media content, or having a conversation with someone next to them. Users can also adjust font size for ease of reading. Live captions in FaceTime attribute auto-transcribed dialogue to call participants, so group video calls become even more convenient for users with hearing disabilities. When live captions are used for calls on the Mac, users have the option to type a response and have it spoken aloud in real time, so others who are part of the conversation. And because live captions are generated on device, user information stays private and secure. So this is really, really cool. And I'll explain why in a few moments. But I first wanted to call out that the deaf community is one of the few that embraces their own personal situation, and it is not a disability. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, the deaf community will look down upon people who try to make them fit in with the hearing community, because like it's a rather large amount of people that could be born deaf or become deaf over time, and they want those people to feel like they are normal, which they totally are. And it's just a language difference ultimately at the end of the day. Like they're capable of reading and writing English, but they are also capable of signing American Sign Language, which is not English. Like it's a different language for all intents and purposes. And
Yeah.
it's on you, the receiver, who may be able to hear, but does not know how to sign. Like it's on you for not being able to understand them. It's not on them to try to lip read and be able to understand you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to call that out because I think it's important to recognize that, like as with most of these things, it is not something as like clear cut as there's normal and then there's everyone else, because there isn't. It's just there's a mix, and you have the bag that you got when you are at a certain given moment in time. So going further from that, so live captions enables anyone who is watching a video or getting audio content coming out of their phone to be able to read that content rather than listen to it. And I think this is big because it opens up all sorts of avenues for everyone to enjoy content more. So specifically, I want to talk a bit about my situation. So I'm not deaf or hard of hearing. In fact, my hearing is completely normal. I'm able to hear sounds across the spectrum without a problem. But I have a cognitive issue where I cannot understand what's coming out of, like, understand the speech that someone else is talking to me with. Whenever there's any amount of, like, noise or conflating information, like, my brain is just incapable of processing it. I do very poorly at, like, loud parties where there's a ton of people. I just won't be able to hear anyone. I will ask them to repeat 4 times and then just give up. And this is one of those kinds of features which I think are tremendously cool, because many times when watching videos, like, I just have captions on automatically, whether it's subtitles for a different language or captions in for English language shows, because I just can't keep up with the show unless there's text that I can read and parse. And oftentimes I use both, like, simultaneously. So something like this is really, really cool because it enables captions for things where no one bothered putting any captions, which is often, I would have to say. Like, one of the benefits of, like, broadcast standards was forcing channels to put captions for the what's the act called, the Americans with Disabilities Act or something like that.
Yeah, 88.
Yeah, and that forced everyone to put captions, which benefits, once again, everyone. So I think this is really neat that we don't need that anymore, and we can use our devices, which have gone pretty good at understanding us better than I can, at least. And as long as it's better than I can, that's the bar that I needed to meet, right? So I am super looking forward to this. I will probably have it just enabled on all my devices because I think that's super useful. And it remains interesting to see what, like, Apple will do with it. Maybe they can turn it into a mode where just your iPhone will be listening and will always be transcribing. Though I would assume anyone could build that right now. Like, the APIs do exist, so that could be very interesting for other situations.
Going back to, on broadcast television, having to have those closed captions, someone's sitting there, and as far as I know, it's like a stenographer, because they have to keep up with, multiple people talking at the same time, captioning that live. And so now having your device able to do that, again, like you said, for anything, not just content, but if you're on a FaceTime call with someone or whatever, having your device be able to keep up, again, at the very least, like, with at the same level as you, if not better, or anyone, not you specifically. It's insane, kind of the amount of progress that we have, and imagine just having to, I mean, not that anyone would do this, but hiring a stenographer 24/7 to live translate all of your, or live caption everything that you look at. Not really a feasible thing, but you just have this supercomputer in your pocket that can do it for you now is pretty dang, that's just insane. So
And
super cool to see this.
it's not like it will replace stenographers, right? Like they still
Sure.
have their a very specific use for actual like live broadcasts or classroom
Courtrooms.
settings, courtrooms. It's a very specific talent that is much more precise than this needs to be. So this has a lot of leeway that it can get away with. And a quick call out to shows that are live in some situations, but then broadcasts for like everyone else. Adjust your closed captions, please. I'm looking specifically at you, John Oliver, and HBO Max because HBO Now,
That's
HBO
awesome.
Go, whatever it's called, because the captions are like, I don't know, 10 seconds late. So we've gone beyond whatever he was talking about, and then the captions are like finally like filling in. It's like,
Yeah.
you can adjust this in post. You can scoot it over. The show is recorded and being broadcast after it's been recorded. So it's like, even if you just do an automated like minus 10 seconds on all the captions, that would have been perfectly fine. But it's a little maddening when those things don't line up, because then for someone who is both listening and reading, well, you can't do that anymore, right? So now it's like you have to half listen, half remember, and then read while he's saying something else, and that becomes maddening quickly. Just because these technologies exist doesn't mean they make life easy for everyone. Like, that is kind of selecting just for people who don't have the volume on, right? There's yet another use case for something like this. Hey, many people don't want to have the volume on while they're in bed or here or there. So like, if you're in class and you want to watch a video and they don't have closed captions, you can now use this to watch the video without like making it obvious that you're watching a video in class.
Very nice.
Not that that's something I've ever wanted to do, not being in class for the past 10 years, but that is something that is now capable. I don't know what people do nowadays. I'm sure they have much better inventions. I'm like, I will be able to watch videos in class. Like, yeah, we've been doing that already. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this is really cool from that point of view only.
Okay, VoiceOver adds new languages and more. So Apple's industry-leading screen reader for blind and low vision users is adding support for more than 20 additional languages, locales and languages. Wow, I can't talk today, sorry. Including Bengali, Bulgarian, Catalan, Ukrainian, and Vietnamese. Users can also select from dozens of new voices that are optimized for assistive features across languages. These new languages, locales, and voices will also be available for speak selection and speak screen accessibility features. And additionally, VoiceOver users on the Mac can use the new text checker tool to discover common formatting issues such as duplicative spaces or misplaced capital letters, which makes proofreading documents or emails even faster. That's cool.
So they have a list at the bottom with all the languages, which I think like is important to call out, not just the popular ones. But we have Arabic for around the world, Basque, Bengali in India, Bhojpuri in India, probably mispronounced that one, sorry. Bulgarian, Catalan, Croatian, Farsi, French in Belgium, so different dialects. Galician, Canada, Malay, Mandarin in Liaoning, Shanxi, and Sichuan, Marathi, Shanghainese in China, Spanish in Chile, Slovenian, Tamil, Telugu, Ukrainian, Valencian, and Vietnamese. So a whole bunch of new languages and dialects So a few points on this. Like a lot of people think, oh, Chinese is spoken throughout China. Like all the different dialects of Chinese are just dialects of Chinese. No, they're different languages. Number one.
Yeah.
Like Mandarin is not Chinese. It's a completely different language altogether. And basically every city has its own language. That's how many languages there are in China. And they're still trying to kind of bring them under one umbrella in all being fluent in Mandarin, but that is still not the case today. So something important to consider. So it's good that they're bringing a bunch of dialects there. And then for around the world as well. One I wanted to call out was Vietnamese because my mother-in-law is Vietnamese and we try to set her up with an iPhone. But a lot of like features are just inaccessible to her. For instance, maps, because maps are entirely in English. And if you want to navigate around, you can't have maps tell you to turn in Vietnamese, right? It's just the Vietnamese language was not part of the system up until, I guess, iOS 16. So it's going to be really cool to see if, because it's available in VoiceOver, it may not be available in Siri, but it is available in anything that's read aloud. So that means that maps could potentially, because it is localized in Vietnamese, it's just not the language, the read aloud parts are not. So I can see this being very useful for her and a whole bunch of other people in the Vietnamese communities around California and around the United States and potentially the world. All Vietnam as well, I guess. I don't know, I wasn't thinking of them. But they exist too. And yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, super cool. I mean, going back to the dialects and everything, like the only one that I can sort of account for is like the Spanish Chilean one is for example, in probably, I think, Mexico and in Argentina, where I learned Spanish, there are words that in one country are harmless, and then in another country are very vulgar. The same word, right? So it would be very weird if your iPhone just threw out vulgarities at you, and you're like, "What is going on?" And it's just because it's not localized to the form of Spanish that you learned or whatever. So cool that they're expanding this, and that's a lot of languages. I wonder, do you think that this is a part of like the audio recordings that they collect from Siri or machine learning, or how do you think they're doing all of this, or if they're just hiring people to?
I think they're definitely just hiring people to speak and be professionals and be their flagship for those particular languages and dialects, because it is something that has so much nuance that you can try to say, oh, machine learning will take care of it. I mean, Google Translate has famously just let machine learning take care of it. But then you get ridiculous things as a result of that, especially as people misuse language. Then the Google Translate can be wildly out of reality and not at all useful in those situations. So I definitely think that they hired at least one and probably multiple people for each of these dialects to really be able to master them. I mean, it's not out of Apple's ability to be able to hire 50 folks around the world. Like, that should be pennies to them. And it's good to see them finally be able to make use of that talent to like make it available to everyone technologically, right? That's what it comes down to. And I think it's really cool that for the Mac, at least, I don't know about iOS if it has something similar, but to have the text checker tool, that's something that I did hear was an issue from like VoiceOver users directly, was they are never completely sure how like what they transcribe is going to show up as, because they can't see it, and like an extra space means nothing to VoiceOver. But it does look wonky to people who are reading it. So this can give them the confidence to be able to polish what they're working on a little bit more if they want to put the time into it. So I think that's pretty cool.
All right, so we've got some additional features here. Let me scroll down real quick. It's got a bunch of screenshots here. Yeah, okay, so like I'll just
Let's do
look at this
them
first
bullet by
screenshot.
bullet.
Yeah, like this first one is super cool. So it says with updates to sound recognition, iPhone and iPad can be trained to recognize a unique alarm, doorbell, or appliance. And so the screenshot says like set up Jay's doorbell, and so it says teach iPhone to recognize the sound by making the sound 5 times, and then it will probably I would assume give you a notification in some way, and perhaps you could do something with that. So that's super cool. And for example, I never hear my doorbell ever. I don't know. I'm upstairs and stuff, but it's not that far away, but I'm usually like listening to music or whatever. So, I don't know if I could just like set an iPad up downstairs and have it like recognize my doorbell and give me a notification or something. I don't know.
It might be able to hear it from upstairs, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Or you can install your fancy doorbell. That will give you HomeKit notifications.
I need to get a new transformer, but it's on my list. So I think that's super cool. Yeah.
Another one is Buddy Controller, which I think is super fun for games, where you can have two controllers control one character. This has previously only been possible with such fun-fangled devices as the Wii or the Nintendo Switch, where you can literally split the controller into two people's hands. Yes. And that, mostly joking aside, this gives you a full controller for someone else, so that way, as you can enjoy the game, someone else can help you be proficient at the game where it might otherwise be difficult. So I think Microsoft has currently been like the leader in these sorts of features, and it's good to see that it's like such low-hanging fruit that Apple is able to also deliver this now that they have Apple Arcade and a fair selection of games that you can go ahead and do this on iOS and Mac devices.
I can't. Maybe it's because I'm in reader mode. I can't find those bullet points. Oh, there we go. I know.
Oh, that's why you just jumped directly to the screenshot. I was confused for a moment.
Oh, yeah. My bad. Sorry. This one's super cool too, and Paul mentioned it in our Slack when we were just kind of going over this as a topic. With Siri pause time, users with speech disabilities can adjust how long Siri waits before responding to a request. So if you need to take a little bit longer to either formulate your sentence or whatever the case may be, you get a little bit more time before Siri starts actually processing the request and, doing whatever you ask it to do. So super cool. I think that's a great one.
I think this one's really interesting because I don't know how you use Siri, but I consciously pause and think about the command in my head before saying it. Like, I don't speak to another person that way. I just kind of open my mouth and then regret it later. But with Siri,
it's
I've learned
robot.
that like you really do need to plan it. Otherwise, like, it's not going to come out in any cohesive way that Siri will be able to understand, because it's a robot. It's not a human that can fully parse and be hurt by your statements. So I think this is pretty interesting because it might allow you to not need to like pause, think about what you're going to tell Siri, then get flustered and then like need to re-say it. So you can adjust it to be more like attuned to you. So yeah. I guess a quick question. Have you ever used intercom with Siri?
No.
Okay, so with
alone.
intercom, you can go ahead and like ping another HomePod or something. The only problem is I never know when I should start speaking, because you have like a command portion and then you have whatever you want to say that's just going to be a voice recording. And oftentimes whenever I use intercom, it just like cuts out awkwardly, or because I like waited too long to like start speaking, because I say, hey, intercom this room, and then I like wait for like a bloop bloop, but I think that's too late. So like I miss the part where I need to like start speaking, and then the other room just gets shh, and then that's like all they get, and it's like a failure on my part.
Nice.
So I think those sorts of things all kind of fall together in this. I don't know if this is going to specifically solve that, but this is the first thing I thought of when I read about Siri pause time, because that is something that plagues my specific inability to use a feature that I think should be pretty cool, because it reduces the amount of yelling you need to do, and my inability to hear after I yell. Like, I can yell and then not hear what the person says in response, right? So I want that intercom to work. It just can't seem to wrap my mind about how it's supposed to work. And like, I think you're just supposed to just like say, "Hey, intercom this room," and then start talking really quickly. And then I know exactly what you want to say, but then I forgot what I want to say because I'm concentrating on thinking about, okay, I need to say, "Hey, intercom this room," and that's all I have on my mind at that point. My buffer has filled up, and then I'm like lost. So maybe pause time will help with that, because then you can be quiet a little longer while you're thinking about your intercom. Or maybe you'll just start butt calling people in different rooms without realizing it. You're like, "Hey, can you grab me a coffee or whatever?" And then you just continue on with your conversation or watching your video and just like streaming the whole time.
Keeps going, yeah.
Keeps going and going and going. And then just never stops. So who knows? Anyways, I just thought that was funny.
Well, a good thing that you can probably fine tune the amount of time to,
I
give
think
it a
it's
little
3
time
settings.
to figure out.
You have normal, longer, and longest. Yeah.
Oh no! Shoot.
Oh no!
Thought it was like up to a second amount or whatever. But all right.
Yeah, default, longer, and longest are the new options.
Okay. All right. So voice control spelling mode gives users the option to dictate custom spellings using by letter input. So there's a footnote here, and I should check this because I'm not 100% sure. Oh, it's just available in English. Correct me if I'm wrong here. This seems to me like if you're trying to spell something that isn't actually like a real word, it would let you do that. Is that kind of what it is? Or
all words are real words, Spencer.
I mean, you give it an acronym or something.
Mm-hmm. Either an acronym, or you're trying to spell a word that's in a different language, or you're trying to spell someone's name. Like, all of this would apply.
Okay, cool.
Like, yeah, I don't know if technology has ever misspelled your name, but my name has forever been misspelled, both by technology and humans. So this is something that's useful to be able to dictate out exactly how something should be spelled, especially if it's not in your context or anything. You can go ahead and do that, or spell out words that are not in the English language. That's also, that's also pretty useful for that.
Cool. No, I think it gets my name right most of the time. Although my the woes of my childhood, whenever we would go on vacation or something, you go to a gift shop and they'd have like mugs or name tags or whatever with your name on it. No one ever had my name. Yeah. No one ever had my name, and so that was always like my angst as a child, was I could never get a souvenir with my name on it for some reason.
Oh, so to that we are brothers.
Yes, I would assume you were in that.
Mine
as well.
was and the worst thing is when it's like almost there but not. It's like, oh, they have DMETRY. No, that's one too many faults, and by one I mean all of too many faults.
You just have like a bunch of mugs with slightly different variations of your name on your wall.
Oh no.
But never the right one.
I think I'm going to have to train my future children to do that for Father's Day, because I think that would be very funny.
There we go.
So thank you for the idea. Anyways, going to the next one. So the Apple Books app will get a whole bunch of new features in this, and I'm excited by it because I use this app like daily. And I have some gripes for it that I will save for another day. But you will get new themes, and it will introduce customization options such as bolding text and adjusting line, character, and word spacing for an even more accessible reading experience. So there are screenshots for this, and there's basically 2 little panels that you get access to. The first one is basically what we have so far. So you have like 3 themes, I believe, a few font options, font size, and then whether you want paged or infinite scrolling. And like we have technological devices, don't use paged, use infinite scrolling. It is better. Like what page are you going to refer to? If you change the font size, the page numbers doesn't make sense anymore. It's like completely pointless. So it's like keep what you're reading at the middle of the device. Anyways, so that is basically what we always had, but now you have 3 more themes basically. So it's not just sepia, white, and dark. You have a bunch more. You have bold, you have calm, you have quiet, you have paper. And when you tap on the little options button, you can customize the line height, the letter spacing, and the word spacing, and whether you allow for multiple columns. I think that might just be on the iPhone, or I don't know. Maybe that's a new option. I'm not sure. And full justification as well to make it easier to read paragraphs or not. That's either easier or harder for some people. So I am super jazzed by that. I wonder if on the iPad you can also customize the margins, because oftentimes as you make the text bigger, the margins get smaller and the lines get longer, and that's actually not great for reading. Like there's an optimal amount of words per line that your brain tends to like. And once you get like too many words, you can get lost in individual lines because you're just not used to navigating that far with your eyeballs. I hope that maybe on the iPad you can also adjust the margins, but I'm guessing since they didn't call it out, you probably can't. So that's maybe unfortunate, or maybe they got better at like choosing good margin defaults. Who knows? So I am definitely looking forward to these.
Makes me think, like, did they just like I know it's probably not this simple, but the first thing I thought of is like, did they just make all of their strings into attributed strings and just like add the kerning attribute and like there's your letter spacing?
Well, no,
and line height.
So ebooks are all like HTML, so they could have just done the same in CSS this whole time. It's just, I imagine Apple, being very opinionated, wanted to like control the typography as best as they could, but they never got as far as they wanted, and therefore they finally relented and just said, hey, okay, you can adjust the line spacing or the letter spacing. Because for the most part, it does a good job, but then every now and then there's like this EPUB that just has the worst line spacing. It's like, we put 3 times line spacing. Enjoy. And I'm like, I don't need to make notes in between lines. Thank you. And it's like, oh, the book is 500 pages. No, it's not. It's just extra long.
Yeah. That's like, you changing your font, upping it to like Times New Roman, 14-point font, just barely changing it to like 1.5 lines. Do you ever do that for like an essay?
In school, I refused to use Times New Roman, and no one ever caught me. I always use alternative typefaces, and awesome. It's always worked excellent for me, because turns out teachers don't know what fonts are, and teachers that do know what fonts are will not force Times New Roman on you. It's that simple. So, like, there are a million ways to make your text larger without messing with the font size. Like, you can prove it. It's like, hey, my font is exactly the same size. I just must mess with the kerning and the leading and all that.
Exactly.
In ever subtle ways that are just going to like be maddening to point out, but will make your document longer. So if you want to cheat, learn about font sizes. I don't know why we keep going back to like school stuff. It's been like 10 years.
No, I know.
And I'm sure there's better techniques now, and like no one submits hand printed things anyways, or do they? I don't know. What's school like? Know. Who knows? It's a mystery. We'll find out in 10 more years, and it'll change yet again.
Yeah.
And then last, Apple just has a bunch of like announcements as far as like what they're doing just in general today, that you don't need to wait for iOS 16.
Yeah, so the first one is Sign Time, which will launch in Canada on the 19th. Whoop, that was 2 days ago as of recording. Oh, they're probably not doing it, or they're probably doing it from now on. It's probably not like...
it's not only on that day.
Okay.
It's like, no more sign time for you.
Missed that one. My bad. Okay. So it'll launch in Canada to connect Apple Store and Apple Support customers with on-demand American Sign Language interpreters. Sign time is already available for customers in the US using ASL, the UK using British Sign Language, and France using French Sign Language. Cool.
So yeah, fun fact about ASL. ASL, American Sign Language, is more closely related to French Sign Language than British Sign Language.
Nice.
Because it came from French signers that brought it over rather than the British signers. And once again, like, sign language is not the same thing as the spoken language in that country.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the grammar is different, the word order is different, sign order, I guess words are a concept, but like the ordering, the way that you can modify the words and signs is all different because it's a different language, invented by signers, not by speakers.
Yeah, I took American Sign Language in high school because I didn't want to learn Spanish. Funny how that turned out. But it was super cool to learn that stuff. Like you said, the grammar's super different, and it's like very efficient. Like, how are you is just like how you, but it's very, I don't know, it's very natural, and you can communicate very quickly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's optimized to be efficient for like transmitting information, right? Instead of needing to hear minute differences across all sorts of other sounds that are also happening in the environment, which is why in most languages you have like conjugation and word accordance and like plural and gender and all that. You have all of that, so that way you can rebuild all the missing pieces that you didn't hear. Like, that's the only function of having all of those extra bits. They're error correcting codes, quite literally. And with sign language, you don't really need that because like visually you have so much more information that's coming in than you do from an auditory wave pattern that is like very encumbered by tons of noise. So like you can be more efficient with a lot of things, and sometimes less efficient, right? I mean, spelling
but
stuff out
like,
is a pain, but if you need to go ahead and communicate an idea, that can be very quick.
Yeah. But also like super expressive, way expressive. It's super cool.
Yeah, like, contrary to belief, you do use your face, you do use your mouth. You're not wording out like what the words are. You're using it in different ways to modify what you're trying to say or sign. Going on to the next one, Apple Store locations around the world are offering live sessions throughout the week to help customers discover accessibility features. So this is like one of the general problems in technology is you make a feature and then no one uses it because they don't know it exists. And like only Apple can go ahead and do anything about that for themselves. Like, they'll never do it for us. But for them, they can go ahead and have sessions where people can join and learn, and they can invite those new customers to those sessions to be able to hear about them and learn about how to use their device and all the apps on them. So thank you, Apple, for making people more technologically savvy, because apparently we still need that in today's day and age. And especially for new features, I think it is useful.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the accessibility menu section in the settings app is huge, but it's also because it's huge. Like, there are a ton of features, but because of that, it's like it's buried. You can get buried in which part of the accessibility menu is this thing and not even know what's there. So the accessibility assistant shortcut is coming to the Shortcuts app on Mac and Apple Watch this week to help recommend accessibility features based on user preferences. That's super cool. I'm wondering if it's what the user preferences are. If it's just
so does it just guess?
ML? Yeah.
Like, hey, it looks like you are blind. Would you need some help?
Yeah.
No, that was in poor taste, but I imagine it probably can guess based on like the patterns and what you keep trying to turn on and off. It's like, hey, you can make this a quick shortcut instead. So maybe that's what it's talking about. I don't know.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's not going to necessarily be Clippy. Hopefully not.
I wonder how many people are going to get that reference. That's old, man.
So also this week on Apple Fitness Plus, trainer Bakari Williams uses ASL to highlight the features available to users that are part of an ongoing effort to make fitness more accessible to all, including audio hints, which are short descriptive verbal cues to support users who are blind or low vision, and time to walk and time to run episodes becoming time to walk or push and time to run or push for wheelchair users. Additionally, Fitness Plus trainers incorporate ASL into every workout and meditation. All videos include closed captioning in 6 languages, and trainers demonstrate modifications in each workout so users at different levels can join in. So a few things on this. Apple Fitness from the beginning has always welcomed the watchers in sign language, but they didn't necessarily do the whole routine in sign language. So it's interesting if this means that the whole routine might be signed, which can be very useful to people who need that. Though I guess there were captions the whole time, so that can also be useful. But once again, the deaf community doesn't necessarily want to adjust themselves to everyone else. So this is being inclusive in that capacity as well. The time to walk or push, meaning push a wheelchair, is just normalizing that some people just need to use a wheelchair, which is great. The more things like this get normalized, the less they get shunned in society in general. And I don't necessarily mean wheelchairs, but there are tons of examples throughout time that you can probably refer to. And I think that is very cool that they're once again these little terminology pieces that we can all kind of learn. I think are useful to add to our own vocabularies, no matter how much I keep not using them throughout this episode, because I am still learning.
Yeah, I know.
And I try to be better, but sometimes my brain buffer just runs out and I say stuff that I will regret. Anyways.
Yep, I'm right there with you. All right, next we have Apple Maps features a new guide from the National Park Foundation, Park Access for All, to help users discover accessible features, programs, and services to explore in parks across the U.S. globes, from Gallaudet University, the world's premier university for deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind students. It features businesses and organizations that value, embrace, and prioritize the deaf community in sign languages. Cool. So I think that's great, letting people, experience the great national parks that we have here in ways that suits them, and they're able to actually, do in whatever capacity they can, is super cool. That's national parks are awesome to go to, and it's great that it sounds like they basically teamed up with the National Park Foundation to do that. So it's coming from them directly.
Next, we have users can explore accessibility-focused apps and powerful stories from app creators in the App Store. Check out the Transforming Our World collection of Apple books, featuring stories by and about people with disabilities, and learn about creative ways technology is advancing accessibility in Apple Podcasts. So I think they feature Snapchat, which has filters to teach people ASL. So outside of school, you can start learning and be introduced. I think the most important part of a lot of this is being introduced to the fact that ASL is just not signing letters, because that's basically the introduction that most people get, and they're like, oh yes. Yeah, sign language seems neat, I need to spell every letter out, and that's not at all what sign language is. That is finger spelling. So me, who knows nothing about sign language, thankfully Lynn has taught me more, everything I know about it. And it seems like you know a fair amount as well, at least much more than the layperson.
I took it in high school. That doesn't mean
but whether you still remember how to do it or not, you were introduced to the concepts, right? And I think that's probably the most important part, because it has already kind of widened your mind and your thinking about those kinds of topics. That's the same reason why people say travel is so important, because without it you don't really experience how other people live in different cultures, and therefore you are kind of closed to your one culture being the only way something is possible, when
Absolutely.
in most cases it's not, right? So that's why it's so important when you do travel to not like be stuck in your bubble, but to like see how their culture has survived and flourished this whole time, completely separately from yours, right? And in many times, despite yours being potentially colonial culture that has taken over or tried to take over them several times. So that is something very important to kind of like be mindful of. That's separate from the mindfulness app, which they mentioned a few times. Which, yeah.
Apple Music will highlight the Say Lists playlists, a collection of playlists that each focus on a different sound. Choosing one and singing along is a fun and engaging way to practice vocal sounds or speech therapy.
So one of my close friends is autistic, and he had to go through speech therapy to be able to like speak and be confident in social situations. And it's because of that he has opened up so much, and he's like a great person to be with. So speech therapy is like super important, and it's good to see more resources become available for parents who have autistic children. So that way they can acclimate at their pace to be able to like become functional in the adult world, because that's like probably the biggest worry that most families with autistic family members have, is how are they going to be able to live without us, right?
Right.
And that's always the biggest worry that they have. So being able to give them confidence that they can get what they need on their own, and they can be autonomous is super, super important. And oftentimes speech therapy is one of the first things that can help that out. So I think this is super cool that Apple is adding more resources specifically for this, because depending on where you live, it can be very hard to find a center that can help with autistic children specifically, because it's not super rare. But if you don't live in a city, everything becomes like the law of averages becomes a lot more wild. So
Sure.
that is super good to see Apple pushing.
All right. The Apple TV app will highlight the latest hit movies and shows featuring authentic representation of people with disabilities. Plus, viewers can explore guest-curated collections from the accessibility community's standout actors, including Marley Martin of Coda, Lauren Ridloff of Eternals, Selma Blair, introducing Selma Blair, Ali Stoker, Christmas Ever After, and from Christmas, and more.
Yeah, so
Nice.
once again, normalizing this is super, super important. Like, it's likely media that normalize LGBT like representation that allowed a whole generation to be more okay with it. And it's not that we need to be okay with it. It just needs to be part of everyday life, that some people just like representing themselves to others differently, and not necessarily having the same attractions as you do. And I think today's today's kids are super a-okay with this, and that is thanks to like a ever so slight progression over time, and it's not instant. And it's great to see more of this being represented, because although there are tons of deaf movies that have been produced, like you probably haven't heard of any of them other than maybe Coda, because Coda was something that was broadcast everywhere, and made super obvious that it existed, where most other deaf creators could not necessarily get that same push, because people didn't necessarily care about the story that they were trying to push for. So it's great to see this get more attention, and it deserves it, honestly.
Yeah, super cool. I've heard that Coda is one that pulls on your heartstrings, so I'm like waiting for a time to like be ready to, like be there emotionally for it and stuff. So I'm excited to see it, and I've heard awesome things from it. I just haven't seen it yet, so on the horizon.
And I'm in the same boat, but
Yep.
we have both heard of it, and I think that is a testament to that, because the more you do hear of it, the more you want to like find the right moment to watch it. Have you ever felt that way?
Oh
Like
yeah.
you hear such great things about something that you never end up watching it. Like I really really want to watch Interstellar, but just
Oh
never
man.
never watch it because I'm like, okay, I have to have like the good sound. I have to have a uninterrupted
Sure.
like 7 hours to watch it, or however long it ended up being.
7 hours. That's pretty close. Yeah.
So like I
Totally.
really want to watch it, and therefore I have not watched it. So same with Coda. And I think that's a testament to how good it likely is, that people look forward to watching it but never end up actually getting to it because they want to like have a sacred amount of time to really enjoy it and absorb it. So this week's episode of Code Completion is brought to you by Not Pho. Tired of eating the same old meals time and time again? Consider Vietnamese food. You might already know of pho, but there are a ton of other flavors specific to Vietnamese cuisine that are sadly not well known around the world. This includes everything from sandwiches like banh mi, rice plates like com tam, and even the deliciously savory crepes known as banh xeo. That's where the app Not Pho comes in. It's a free-to-try app dedicated to teaching you more about the wonders behind Vietnamese cuisine, brought to life with colorful and interactive illustrations and animations. Learn how to make many classic Vietnamese flavors at home, but even if you don't cook, you'll know how to order like a pro the next time you visit your local Vietnamese restaurant. New since version 1.1 is the Chef Club, regularly bringing you even more recipes like avocado and mango smoothies, fried rice, chicken curry, and my personal favorite, chicken beef, for the low cost of $2 a month, with more recipes added regularly. Recently, the Chef Club saw the addition of meatball banh mi and tofu banh mi, two twists on the classic sandwich that add even more variations to your repertoire. Thanks again to Not Pho for sponsoring our show. Search for Not Pho, that's N-O-T space P-H-O on the App Store today to give it a try, completely for free. And Not Pho is completely localized in Vietnamese, so it will likely get Vietnamese voiceover once that launches in iOS
Nice.
16. So a benefit to planning early. Yeah, in any case, off to our mini review corner, where we buy too much stuff and therefore find a point of us showing it to everyone. So last week, I received my Kickstarter delivery of the iOS app icon book by Michael Flarerup. So this is this wonderful shiny tome. You can see Spencer right there. Say hi, Spencer. And you really can't see anything, but that is Spencer right there. Like if you wait, there you go. There's the hand.
Yeah, you can kind of tell.
You can kind of tell. And this book is awesome, and I say that not only for like if you want to get into app design, like tons and tons of inspiration, just like all over the place for awesome app icons. But if you're just an app developer, I would suggest getting this book. One, because you can go ahead and work with a designer and say, hey, I really like the style of this icon, and this icon.
Yeah.
And then the designer can tailor your app's design to those stylistic properties that you pointed out. Because oftentimes we, like as we mentioned today so much, we lack the vocabulary to describe what we are after when we're not used to that field of communication. And design is likely one aspect that tons of developers know very little about. So if you can't necessarily say like, oh, hey, I want an icon that looks like something super cool, and I want it flashy and it has to be sexy. If that's like the limit of your vocabulary for describing what you want out of an app icon, it's going to be a long process before you end up with what you actually want, because maybe you have a clear image in your head, you just lack the ability to communicate that, or maybe you don't have a clear image in your head yet, and you need some examples to kind of narrow it down. So having a book like this is great for being able to focus that quite a bit more.
Yeah, it's super cool. I saw the Kickstarter and I didn't end up backing it. I don't quite know why, but I just pre-ordered it for like the Kickstarter pre-order. In one sense, I just think it's cool as like a celebration of apps in general, right? But also just like especially looking at some of the older, and we've talked about this before, but some of the older app icons and stuff, and just how much detail were put into, the leather textures and all of this stuff, and Dimitri's, uh, uh, I can't remember what it was. I'm just gonna call it like the fried, kanji letter or whatever
Oh, the
of your own
katsudon.
app
Yeah.
icon. Yeah, the katsudon. All of this stuff is like people put in a lot of work, and even if they had a designer do it, they're a part of that process, and it's just kind of a really cool celebration of this like niche art form that is the iOS app icon, and really how far people take it. And yeah, I think it's super cool. I'm stoked to get it.
And I think it's a testament to how well pre iOS 7 iconography
Exactly.
like still looks good nowadays.
Yeah.
Because I think iOS 7 kind of pushed for here's a more simplistic way of making app icons that anyone can make, and even though it was much more simple, plenty of people still butchered. And not to mention like tons of people going for the Android look where you have like that diagonal shadow out of nowhere, and like those like it's simple to make. You have a one shape glyph and then you add an effect to it and then you're done. The iOS treatment would have been a very vibrant like single gradient downwards behind a white glyph, and that would you could call it done, but you miss out on like being super expressive and recognizable in a way that a single glyph like doesn't really support. So there is no reason not to have a really awesome looking icon. It's out of the capability of most designer novices' hands, and therefore you don't end up with that. But if you do work with a true to form designer, then you can get something that looks super amazing. And the way to communicate how amazing you want it is to have some good examples from like a book like this. So I would definitely encourage anyone who does any amount of app development to get this book. It is like an invaluable resource to get the best examples basically that are out there. I also want to point out that, like we mentioned, I think was it 2 episodes ago, where like you only get better by practicing. This book may be like one of the best things because oftentimes it shows you like the stylistic process that some designers went through to make an icon, and you'll see like they are amazing with a pencil. Oftentimes it'll show you their sketches and they're awful with a pencil. They like cannot use a pencil to save their life. You get the idea that turned into like this gorgeous icon afterwards, but it's not like they took a picture of that and then traced. They
Sure.
redid it from scratch on the computer with a tool that they're way more comfortable with. So
Yes.
like you don't have to have a good hand-eye coordination to be able to draw the icon directly. You don't need that at all. If you are capable of nudging pixel by pixel until you think it looks perfect, like that's how a lot of designers work. So don't feel like you can't do that on your own. All you need really is practice. And what better way to practice than pick a random icon and spend 30 minutes trying to recreate it and cap yourself at 30 minutes. Like don't spend 1 month working on one icon. Spend 30 days working on 30 different icons, because you will get way better, way quicker, just trying to reproduce what you like. And by trying to reproduce what you like, you're going to start noticing, oh, to do this, they added a subtle shadow. Like that's the way to get this. Or maybe they added a gradient. And the less someone shows you what exact techniques they use, the more you have to think about it. But by thinking about it, you remember that technique a lot better, or you remember how to get to that solution a lot better. So it's a lot less memorization and a lot more like configuring your brain to work in a certain way. And it is super useful and just as a technique in general. So if you do want to get great at like making icons, I would suggest hands down get a book like this, specifically this book, and spend 20 to 30 minutes every day like practicing on an icon. Just pick a new icon every single time, whether you finish or not, doesn't not matter. Just go ahead and go through the motions of building that icon, and you'll see after a month of doing it, you're going to get a lot farther than day one of doing it. And eventually you'll get to the point where you can very quickly make an icon that looks exactly like that from a distance, like in no time at all. And you might also learn the skills to get all the shadings and light working perfectly to your favor. So, like, great way to practice.
Yep. It's that whole thing just reminded me. I mean, it's the problem solving process, right? Where we say, build a table view 100 times, you'll be able to build the table view really fast. Same thing.
You won't forget any of the methods that you need. Like, you'll know exactly how to connect. It's like, oh, silly me, I didn't hit run yet, but I forgot that data source. Like, you will have all of that under control just by doing it tons of times. Whereas if you only do it 5 times, you're gonna be like scratching your head, pulling your hair out because it's not working, and you're like, what didn't I do right? I did all those tutorials, but you just didn't do them as many times, right?
Yep. Make that pottery.
Yep. So as always, I want to personally thank everyone for listening in this week. Please be sure to follow us on Twitter at Code Completion to know when new episodes get released, and feel free to tweet at us if there's ever a topic you'd like for us to dig into. Most importantly, as a small podcast, please be sure to share this with your friends and family who are also interested in any part of the process of app development. It's your support that enables us to continue doing this, and we hope to grow a healthy community around everything we discuss. Once again, I want to give my thanks to Spencer, who's at Spencer C. Curtis, that's SpencerCurtis on Twitter, for joining me this week. My name, once again, is Dimitri. You can find me at Dimitri Bouniol, that's DimitriBouniol, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
So I have, like, a super silly thing for commented out. I haven't done Apple Fitness in forever, but they called out that, like, every Apple Fitness thing has a variation that's much easier. And when I was doing Apple Fitness forever ago, there was a character in the background that was doing the easy one, and it looked like Ben, and I could not get the image of Ben out of my mind. And he was always doing it like super lazily, like putting no effort into doing it properly. With the super buff person in front was doing it, Ben was like la. So, like, in my head, it was forever Ben is messing around in the background. And I don't mean to bring light, because what we were doing in front of the TV was Ben's version, not the super, like, muscular guy with, like, a prosthetic leg that's, like, outperforming all of us. like we were not able to live up to that. We were only able to live up to Ben, but just seeing Ben in comparison to that was so funny to us. So we died of laughing every time he came up on screen. I think his name might have been Ben too, and that's like what like really ruined it for us. But sorry, Ben. I know you haven't been on the show for a while, but that's all I think about every time I think of Apple Fitness.
Don't bash on Ben's side gig, all right, man? He's just like trying to make a living, all right?
Why didn't he tell me he was out in LA this whole time?
No, that's awesome. I also haven't used Apple Fitness since it came out, and I think I tried it once or twice, and I was like, oh, I feel terrible. This is awful. I don't ever work out, and I should, but yeah, maybe I'll try it again. I don't know. Working out is a whole thing. I wish I could. I just don't. Yeah, good idea in practice and in theory, just not for me. Someday, I don't know.
There's a comic, I think it's called Strange Planet, that kind of exploded during the pandemic. It was, it has these little, I think they're purple or blue, like aliens.
Yeah.
And they go through the motions of human society and culture. And there was one on working out that I saw scroll by this past week. It was like feeling pain to feel less pain. I think that isn't the exact like feeling that you get out of it. Let me see if I can find it quickly.
Here's one that it's So one of the aliens is doing push-ups, and another one walks in, and he says, "Are you in pain?" "Yes. I push myself up to let myself down, so I'm up to 50 letdowns a day. So many daily letdowns. I have acclimated to it." That's very good. We'll post a link to
Here,
a bunch of these.
I found this one that I was thinking of. I'm folding myself to become more foldable. It is pain that prevents pain.
Dude, it's so true.
Yeah, Strange Planet is awesome.
Very
The
good.
author is Nathan W. Pyle. Buy his books. They are absolute joys to go through, especially if you've never seen them. Please support him so he continues making these. They are so awesome.
And who's the other guy? Oh, something Norris, I think. The Oh No guy.
Alex Norris, yeah.
Alex Norris. Oh my gosh, his are so
Doris
good too.
McComics, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh no.
So
Those are
when the realization
fantastic.
kicks in, right? Okay.
We'll post a link too to that. Ah, so good. Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.